As I mentioned in the beginning of our celebration and welcome today, that just prior to the event we just heard proclaimed in today's gospel, Jesus had startled his apostles by indicating that he must go to Jerusalem, suffer greatly there at the hands of the elders, the chief priest, and then be put to death. He follows this announcement by also saying to them, if a man wishes to come after me, he must deny his very self, take up his cross, and begin to follow in my footsteps. There's no doubt that those statements by Jesus unsettled the apostles. Jesus was a very wise leader and decided that a time out was in order for these apostles. Jesus knew the apostles needed to process what these words of Jesus implied for their future. After all, they were going to follow him. So he took 3 of his most trusted apostles and he climbed up Mount Tabor in order to escape the ever-present crowds that kept following Jesus. He just needed that time out with those 3 apostles to give them some encouragement. Once on the mountain, Jesus gave the apostles an unexpected vision. Jesus was transfigured before their eyes, showing to these 3 apostles his divinity. And he was accompanied by 2 of the Old Testament's greatest figures, Moses and the prophet Elijah. And from on high, they heard another voice proclaim, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." Listen to him. Falling to their knees, Peter, James, and John were overwhelmed with emotion and fear. And Jesus reached down, he touched them, and he said, "Rise. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid." I would like to challenge myself and all of you to make this Lenten season as our opportunity to walk with Jesus as he climbs Mount Tabor. Lent can be a time out for all of us. We need time outs every so often. Our kids are well aware of that. It can be a time to reflect on the very words that Jesus spoke to Peter, to James, and to John. If a man or a woman wishes to come after me, he or she must deny one's very self, take up one's cross, and begin to follow me. Our parish Lenten theme invites all of us to follow Jesus' example by walking in his footsteps. The theme that we've chosen this Lenten is living the mission of the Eucharist. Each time we come to our mountain here at Our Lady of the Lake or at St. Anne's, this beautiful place where we celebrate Eucharist, we have an exact same encounter with the divinity of Christ as we receive Jesus in the reception of Holy Communion. Just as the apostles experienced that on Mount Tabor, we experience it here every time we gather around the Eucharistic table. It is at the Eucharistic celebration where we have this intimate, unbreakable bond of love that exists between Jesus and ourselves. Just as Jesus is God's beloved Son, so we who have been baptized into Jesus are truly God's beloved daughters and sons as well. It is at the Eucharist that we participate in the union of love that exists between the Father and the Son. This is the good news revealed in Mount Tabor and proclaimed again when we share in the breaking of the bread. The Eucharist reminds us never to forget our status as beloved sons and daughters of God. And it is our call to help build a just society in living lives of holiness amidst the many, many challenges that we face in modern society. This Mount Tabor, God renews his covenant with us. Our Bishop Bradley beautifully reminds us in his pastoral letter what the mission of the Eucharist is all about. He says in these beautiful words, our intimate connection, our Holy Communion with Jesus is not just for our own benefit. It strengthens our relationship with every member of the body of Christ, the church, for the benefit of all. Each time we are united with Christ through the reception of the Eucharist, Jesus sends us out to share his work. We're sent out to share his work. As members of Christ's body, we are called to act as his hands, as his feet, as his compassionate heart. When we receive Holy Communion, we also receive Jesus' mandate to preach, to bring healing, to inspire, to comfort, and to serve all of God's people according to our individual gifts and talents. The Eucharist is something active. It's ongoing. It's not just for the moment that we step up and receive it. It's the continuation of the presence of Christ in all that we do as a community and as individuals. It is my sincere hope that this Lenten season will inspire all of us to renew our love for the Eucharist in our commitment to act as Christ's hands, his feet, and to show his compassionate heart to all we encounter in all that we do. Jesus sends us on a mission at each Eucharist, gathering us to share in his work with the poor, with the vulnerable, with the lonely, with the outcast, and those who are looking for God's presence in their lives. Rise, Jesus says. Do not be afraid. We do not walk alone. The living Jesus within us will show us the way. Through our reception of the body and blood of Christ, we are empowered to be men and women of courage, not afraid to advocate for the dignity of life at every stage of the life spectrum, and to work for the common good in all aspects of life. Lent invites me to this mission of the Eucharist. The question that remains is, will we say yes to that call?